So can anybody tell me what is a pod? Because you just may be having a slightest of the idea. Without this concept of pod and the deployment and the service, we will not be able to continue with Kubernetes. They are the basic units. So can anybody tell me what do you mean when I say pod? What do you think of it? Do you have any answers? Anything, your guesswork, your concept-wise answer, good answer, bad answer, wrong answer, nothing, doesn't matter. You have heard about containers, right? The Docker, the container, and all those things, those were already done. So now we are getting introduced to another one important term called pod. But they are very, very related, the container and a pod. In Kubernetes, we will refer to as pod. Everywhere it is basically you do not think of or you do not mention about container. It is all and everywhere it is pod. Now, what is that? Anybody wants to try? Don't worry for any wrong answers because there is no wrong answer. If you try, you will reach there.
Is it
Which
nodes?
is it is the smallest
I
unit
think
in
pods are.
Kubernetes and use it to create containers.
Sorry, can you repeat that answer, please? I couldn't follow.
It is smallest unit in the Kubernetes, and it is also used to create containers, and it is used to manage containers.
Fantastic. Anyone else was also trying to answer that same question? What about the pod?
I'm just saying, I say, can they be referred to as nodes?
Is it nodes that you
Mm.
said?
Mm.
Mm, yeah, it is part of the nodes, but it is not exactly a node. Node is
Is
the
this
virtual
a
machine
part
or
of
the
microservice?
it is part of the microservice. I will park that answer. It is more or less right, but it is when you say microservice, you do not actually have a vision of pod. But when you say pod, you might be right when you say that we always think of microservice, but it can be a single monolithic application as well. It is not necessarily that always a pod has to have a microservice application. It is mostly, yeah, that is why we come to Kubernetes and pod. Okay, but it is not necessary that it is always had to be a microservice. But you are almost there. You're almost there.
Mm.
Okay. No,
Is
that's a very good try. I'm very happy with at least you are trying. Because see, pod is the smallest unit of Kubernetes. The smallest unit, why? Because we cannot, that is the atomic level. Okay. You cannot go down below it. Yeah, you can go down below it where you see a container. That's fine. But containers are a concept, whereas pod is a component of a Kubernetes architecture or this thing. So yes, you never utter you definitely have something of the container in mind because you know the container architecture, but you always refer to as pod because pod is just one more layer over the container because now it is a container is not isolated or it is not working in isolation. It is working in isolation but in a cluster of so many things, so many objects, all like the like many people are there in an orchestra, but you are a separate musician, like you are playing a violin and there are hundreds of people or say 20 people in that orchestra who are playing the same violin. But do you think that that lady with the small violin She is independent. She is isolated, though she is working in that orchestra, in that cluster. So her identity is also very important, as well as her isolation is also very important, as well as her uh, atomicity is also very important. That means I can start with pod, I can end with pod. So that is the full cycle. So if that musician, that lady who is very, very attuned with her job, now somewhere there is some mistake done by that lady, it also impacts the cluster. It is not that there are tens of others of violinists who are playing the violin will make it up. Yeah, there will be a makeup, but her contribution is not to be undermined. So that is very important. Your hundreds of containers are running. I will not say hundreds of containers. I'm saying hundreds of pods are running. Why? Because I need to ensure that each and every pod is isolated, is having the atomicity, is having the security, availability. These are becomes very important when you come to something working in a cluster. Everyone contributes to the making, to the working of the availability of the cluster, security of the cluster. Though it is the smallest unit, it's a very important unit of Kubernetes. If a pod goes wrong, your application goes wrong. Because where is the application running? The application is running inside the container, and the container is abstracted with a layer of pod, such that that container, that application is isolated, is secured within the pod. It is like you have given a home to that container. The container feels very safe. The application within the container feels very safe. Somebody told me microservice. Yes, that microservice is a small unit of that entire big application, but that needs to feel safe. That needs to feel important. That I'm small, but I am very important to that cluster. So that's why you abstract on the container. Each and every container will be abstracted. And my thumb rule is one pod should have only one container. Yeah, there is always a provision that the inside of one pod you can have multiple containers. But what the standard says that you must have only one container within one. So basically, it is saying that you must have only one application running inside a pod, because it is good that all the resources of the pod will be concentrated on that application. Security, availability, runnability, maintainability, everything will be maintained if the entire resources of the pod be concentrated on that container. So you can theoretically do more than one container inside a pod, but basically you should not. Because that pod becomes one entity, an object having an IP address. Now think of, so this application is an application, let's say Java application, and this is a MySQL server database that is also working in a pod as one single application. Now, suddenly the pod goes down. Pod is a physical entity. It can go down. So what will happen to this DB? DB was speaking to this. There was a connection between this IP and this IP. Okay, suddenly this IP gone. So you must have a orchestration that immediately this app will be replaced. It is not very simple to replace a database, though we have to do multiple replicas of the database as well. But to have multiple replicas of a database, that's a different discussion altogether. That takes a bit of more learning how you can replicate it. Replicating an application is very simple. You can do it over abstraction. See, you are doing an abstraction on the container, and that is called a pod, but that is not all. The pod having an IP address can go away anytime. And so when you replace this pod, yeah, replication, there is a replication manager and you can replicate it. So when you replicate or replace a pod, are you not talking about a new IP address? Will you be using the same IP address? What do you think? A pod suddenly goes down. A pod was having identification through the endpoint was IP address because somebody would like to connect to it. So it will be connected over the IP address of the pod. But do you think that when the pod goes down and it is being replaced with another pod immediately, because there is a replication manager and the desired state was three number of pods should be running in that environment, whereas one pod going down, that means how many was there? One short of the desired amount. So immediately there will be some controller who will know and give that information to the where will this information be stored? Previous day we had a discussion on that. Who stores that info? Sorry, somebody
No.
tried.
etcd.
etcd, yeah, etcd. etcd always gets the first-hand information of what is happening all over the cluster. Okay, so from that etcd, who will take that information immediately? See, we are repeating, we are revising. Just think of that architecture.
Yes, sir.
Immediately you will get that. Who will take that information from etcd? See, storing an information, if somebody doesn't
API,
consume
sir.
that. Sorry, which one?
I think API server.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, my friend. Yes, you are correct. Because unless and until that information is available with API server, nothing moves in that cluster. And that movement will be that the knowing of that information within in nanoseconds. It will be taking very fast. So that information is readily, once the pod goes down, that information through the kube proxy, who will take that information from the node to the master server? Again, I will go through all the questions so that these concepts are very, very ingrained. Now, somebody and some pod has gone down. Who will carry this information to whom?
I think the scheduler will carry the information to the API servers.
No, but scheduler, I'm talking about the node. This is a node which is a worker node. This does not have a scheduler.
A kube proxy. Or kubelet.
Kube
Kubelet
proxy.
will.
Yes. Very good, my friend. Kube proxy. Yes. Kube proxy will take that information and hand it over to kubelet. Kubelet is the main guy who will communicate between the master and the node. Kube proxy will get the first-hand information because kube proxy is sending the heartbeat with each and every pod over the pod network. Okay, and kube proxy will be the first person to know something has gone wrong with the pod. So kube proxy will immediately send that information to kubelet. Kubelet is running. Okay, both on the server as well as your on the node. So kube proxy is sort of an agent. That agent will pass on that information immediately to whom? See, again the flow. Who will kubelet communicate with first hand?
API
Kube
server.
proxy, API server. Yes, API server will get the information, but first of all, there will be a controller manager. Between the node and the master plane, there will be a controller manager. So controller manager will take that information from the kubelet and hand it over to the etcd. etcd, because see, every time API server will query the etcd, keep on querying the etcd. etcd will get that information from the controller manager because controller manager is like a postman. It will just post that message from the kubelet into the etcd. etcd will pass that information, or rather API server will take that information from the etcd, and now some action will be taken, like the fire brigade has been called. The fire will now be extinguished. So what will API server do? Immediately will call scheduler. Scheduler, with the help of the controller manager, will spring into action and will give that particular replacement. That replication manager will be called into action. So a replication manager will replicate or replace the pod which has gone down through the scheduler. So the scheduler will know I have to schedule. So suppose this node is too much jam-packed. So one pod has gone down because there was too much of load into that node. So what will scheduler do? Because it can immediately know the health, because all this information has been passed on by API server to the scheduler. Scheduler knows that no, this node one, I will not replicate this app, my app. I will replicate this into some other node which is running in that cluster, who is not having that much of a load. Okay. But the same application will be replicated. So your end user does not need to know whether it is running on node 1 or node 2 or node 3 or node 4. It is the scheduler and automation of the cluster of the Kubernetes that will take care. Here, can we proceed? Is that more or less the picture clear? But the basic question was, will the IP address be the same? The replaced pod, will it have a new IP address or the same IP address?
It will get a new IP address.
Yes. Just give me 1 minute. There is a knock on the door. Sorry. So the IP address getting replaced. Now again, the pod network needs to again reshuffle, readjust the new IP address. It has to take the new IP address. So that is an old architecture. This replacement of the IP address is not very easy. There has to be some there is some synchronization between all the processes that are running. They have to know the new IP address. It is cumbersome. Okay. So there is a concept of service. Service will replace the concept of IP address. IP address communication is not important for between the pod. So the pod should communicate with each other, but through the service. Service is another. See, with deployment, sorry, I didn't say about that. See, a pod is an abstraction layer over container. And again, there is another abstraction layer caused by deployment. So deployment is one object, Kubernetes object. You will create that deployment object. That will have an abstraction layer on the pod. So what is the innermost? It is the container. On top of it, there is the pod. On top of it, there is a manifest file through which you will create the pod. Earlier days, when Kubernetes was not that matured, what was happening? People used to create pod by writing the manifest of pod itself. But that was not very efficient. Now with deployment, you create pod, and the deployment comes with a service. So you create a pod with a service. And service is one thing which will replace the IP address. Service will communicate between the ports. Port communication is much more easier, and ports do not change. So see, if you are running Nginx or if you are running Apache Tomcat server on a particular port, are you going to keep on changing the port? Suppose that pod has gone down. Pod means that application, say Apache Tomcat server has gone down. It got a new IP address, but does it change the service port? No. That is the big advantage of having service. So anyway, pods in Kubernetes is ephemeral. Ephemeral is very temporary. That is, they can die easily. Therefore, the pod will be replaced with a new pod assigned with a new IP address. Hence, the internal IP address communication between the pods will need to be adjusted every time the pod restarts. And this, if you think of hundreds of pods running in that cluster, this adjustment can take a bit of time, and the performance can get impeded. Hence, we do not do anything which needs to adjust itself every now and then, because pods can die any time. Pods are very ephemeral. Hence, another component, these are called Kubernetes objects and components called service, will be used instead of replacing the IP address of the pods. Fine, I move ahead. Now, there is the replica set. Now, these are why I'm going through all these terms. You have to be very aware. If you are a DevOps engineer working on Kubernetes architect or Kubernetes system, you need to be aware of these terms. Replica set. Now I have master and I have slaves. Slaves are the worker nodes. So I have one master database, the master pod, and I will do a replication such that they will be treated as some standby. If something happens to the master, see, we are still working on the master, because master database, I am not going to do it again and again. I am not going to, there is a term called dirty read and dirty write. Did you hear this term in database? Dirty read means, see, parallelly many users are reading the data, but in the meantime, there was a write. So somebody who was reading it previously will not get the read of the latest data which has been updated or written, isn't it? So to replicate a data and to be in sync with each and every replica is not a matter of joke. It takes a lot of fine tuning and planning. We will not do a replica just like the application pods. We will do it with some other technology. But anyway, that is not the point of discussion. The point of discussion is, what is a replica set? A replica set in Kubernetes object, API object that manages the life cycle of the pods. That means whenever you have said that I want this pod to be replicated 4 times or 3 times, that means I will be anytime the MongoDB replica should be available to me in 3 pods with the same amount of data, same everything same. So I'm saying that they are 3 replicas. So a replica set will be an Kubernetes object, API object, which will try to keep that particular desired state through the replication controller. Replica set is a new thing. Earlier, it was the replication controller. That object used to control or manage the replication replicas. But replica sets is a much more flexible thing. And whenever, as I told you, whenever you will do a deployment, that is, you are extracting the pod or abstracting the pod with deployment creates your replica sets, replicas. I want a 3 replica or a 5 replica or a 7 replica, okay, of an application. So that will be maintained by replica set. You will see that whenever you create a deployment of, if I had created a replica of 1, how many replica sets will be created of a pod? So if I have created a replica, just 1 replica, I did not want 2 or 3 or 4. If I wanted 4 replica set, replicas, there will be 4 replica set. These are objects. So how does a replica set work? A replica set works by using a selector. Now there are 2 terms. When you define means when you declare a deployment of a pod. Deployment, as I told you, is an object, which is an abstraction layer over the pod. So then at that time you declare what you want. So you want 3 replicas, and you see there are hundreds of pods. How will the replication controller or the replica set know which pod needs to be replicated how many times? So there is a selector and a label through which was defined by the deployment. So the replica set will work on that exactly. So replica set will be doing as per the deployment manifest has been done. So it will identify the pod through the selector and the label. So the deployment will give a selector matching and a matching label. So the replica set will be having a matching label of that particular pod. So that is how it will maintain the replica. If the count falls down, it will immediately, because it knows the desired number, it will if there was some excess pods, it will delete the excess pod, or it will schedule a new one if the replica has gone down. That is the replica set. So with each deployment comes the replica set automatically. You do not use replication controller anymore, but you create a replica set. You do not have to create it separately. Once you create a deployment of a pod, the replica set is created. Internally or in the background, the replica set will keep as long as the pod is there. As long as, can I ask you a simple question? How do you think the pod needs to be destroyed? Will you, so suppose there are 5 pods. Suppose there are 3 pods. And you want, instead of 3 pods, you thought I will make the pod number scale up. So where will you create a pod? Yeah, you can create a pod. And you can give the same label as this. So it will be the same pod. You can do that. There is a manifest with which you can create a pod. But nowadays, you do not create a pod with a pod manifest. As I told you, you create a pod with a deployment manifest. Now, in the deployment, how do you change the number of replicas? Where will you do the change? Will you use kubectl to create a pod, or will you change the deployment manifest? The current desired state was 3 replicas. You change it to 4 and then apply that deployment. That's all. So anytime 4 replicas will be maintained of that pod. Suppose your application, now the project manager told you, okay, that pod was deployed because we wanted to test it. Now I want to get it removed. I don't want that application to be tested any further. How will you in that environment take away all the pods related to that particular application? What is the way? Are you going to individually delete the pods? Suppose there are 4 pods, four replica of the same pod, which was created with the deployment. Are you going to individually keep on deleting? What will happen if you delete one pod? You can do. There is a kubectl command. Kubectl, kubectl. That is the CLI. We have discussed that. Kubectl is the CLI for you to manipulate or to manage your Kubernetes cluster. You can do everything with that simple and humble command called kubectl. Now, you tell me there is a question to you. How will you delete all the pods? In one command, in one kubectl command. There are 4 pods, 4 replicas of MongoDB. How will you delete all the pods in one command? All the pods means all the pods of this particular label, MongoDB, this MongoDB application. Will you try to individually delete the pod? What will happen if you try to delete one pod? You can delete one pod, but what is the end result? Anyone? Just try, just try. It is always better to.
So is it that one pod will become the master pod?
No, see, the thing is, yeah, I have given for the sake of understanding that this is because this is a database. So this database, replication of a database is a bit difficult. So the read write always happens over there, but the replication will, there is a replication process that keeps on happening. But actually the users are going to read write over here on the master. But I'm not discussing about that. This master, the whatever the pod, where do you think this pod is running? Is it on the master plane or on the worker nodes? You tell me that first.
I would say the worker.
Inside the worker, right?
Yes.
Yes. Remember, you can never create any pod. Yeah, you can. There is nothing called you can never. You can. But there is always a taint and taints. There is a few terms called taints, tolerations. Because by default, on the master server or the master plane is tainted to not tolerate creation of any pods on the master server. That is the beauty. That is the sanctity you have to maintain. You create the pods where? Anywhere in the cluster or in anywhere in any nodes, not on the master. Master is not meant for that. See, everything like in a football match, the goalkeeper cannot be a center forward, isn't it? So every role is defined. Yeah, the goalkeeper can also play in the center forward. Yeah, that he has the skills, but he's not supposed to do that. The role is very important. So a master server, you should not be creating on the master server any pods. The pods will automatically deployed by whom? By the scheduler onto the worker nodes. Maybe there are hundreds of worker nodes, or maybe there are 5, whatever it is, 1 master node and 5 worker nodes. You create all the deployments and the services you create where? All this manifest, all the Kubernetes objects are created where? Is it created on the worker node or on the master node? I see all the questions are related. So I started with one question. I am coming back to that question. I will not leave you. But tell me, where do you apply the manifest files, like the deployment? You have to apply, no? You have written some instructions that you want to create.
The deployments, I'm guessing, will be in the master.
Yes, not only deployments, whatever manifest you try to manifest means some instructions, some additional, some information that you are giving to the master plane that I want this and that. Declarative, not imperative, declarative. Okay. So that all those things, because the API server is the brain. The brain will first see that whether your instructions are okay. And you are giving those instructions, you are applying this everything through the CLI. And the CLI to Kubernetes is kubectl, kubectl, where you write your instructions, whatever, manifest. So you apply everything, all the Kubernetes objects are created on the master node. but the directives and the actions are happening on the worker nodes. So a pod which was deployed on the master will be deployed on the worker node, any worker node. If there are 5 worker nodes and 1 master node, so the deployment manifest was created on the master, but the worker nodes were created on the worker nodes. The pods were created on the worker nodes. Now that is one thing. Now I am coming back to my original question. I have 4 pods running at that moment, and that is my desired replica sets. I mean, desired replicas that I always want 4 pods for that application to be running at any point of time. If one goes down, it will be replaced. Now you deleted 1 pod, what will happen?
You just said it to be replaced.
It will be immediately replaced. That is the mechanism, that is the orchestration. That it is like zombie process. You kill, it is again born. You kill, it is again born. You can never be able to delete the pods that way. So what do you do? So this question leads to another question. So the interviewer is asking how you will delete all the 4 pods together. Can anybody try to? Yeah, from the master.
From the master.
Yeah, what will you delete? Yeah, you have to. Yeah.
The manifest file.
Yes, what is the name? Who has created those pods?
Replica set.
Deployment.
There you are. That is beautiful. So you give one command, you delete the deployment of that particular whatever the deployment is, and you have deleted all the pods and its replicas in one shot. So isn't it fantastic? You were not being able to. It's a zombie. You are deleting. It is getting recreated. You can never delete a pod manually. That is the structure. That is the desired state, isn't it? Because the replica set will immediately schedule another one, schedule a new one. So it is a lost battle. So what you do, you know that I have a missile deployment. I will do it. If you delete the deployment, there is no manifest. The pods are gone. Okay. So why do you use deployment and not replica set? Replica set, you are using it in the background. Yes. But a deployment is a higher level concept that manages. So see, deployment is so modern, so powerful that it does not only create a pod with all its replicas, but it also manages the replica sets and provides the declarative updates to pods along with a lot of other features. Therefore, it's generally recommended to use deployments instead of directly using. You can use replica sets. You can build a manifest with replica set, but it is not needed anymore. So a brief comparison, replica sets ensures that a specified number of pod replicas are running at any given time. However, a replica set doesn't support a clean rolling update to your application. If you are working with replica set, the main hurdle is the rolling update. And rolling update is like a blue-green deployment. You know, you have heard the term blue-green deployment. That means some production deployment is running. Some deployment is running in production, but there is a new version or a new upgrade or something which needs to go. But You cannot have a downtime of that production. So you say have introduced a parallel system. Let's say blue is now production. You have introduced green. Green is your test. You are doing it everything on the production itself. So the concept has revolutionized. It is called a blue-green deployment. It is called rolling update. As you gradually bring down the production and gradually make it up. When the earlier version is down, at that point of time, the new version will be up. Seamless blue-green deployment. And to do that blue-green deployment, Kubernetes has a very important concept called rolling update. You cannot do it with replica set. That's why you need deployments. A higher level concept that manages replica sets and provides declarative updates to pod. It handles updates in a controlled way. Providing controlled way is the buzzword. It handles deployments in a controlled way. It will bring down a pod. It will bring up the new version of the pod simultaneously in the same time without the system getting impacted, without any downtime. Providing mechanisms of update strategy like rolling updates. This is a very important term. So your interviewer might ask in Kubernetes, how do you implement rolling updates? You will say, sir, I will go for deployment manifest. That's all. He will be very happy. He will sign up your appointment. And you can also pause your updates. And one big thing is if something has gone wrong, you can never predict that. Nothing is 100%. You cannot be 100% sure that the rolling update can be 100%. So there can be some failure somewhere which you did not anticipate. Okay, and because you are working directly on production with a separate namespace, now the rollback to the previous version can seamlessly be done through deployment. In short, while replica sets are a powerful tool for maintaining a stable state of replicated pods, deployments provide a higher level, more feature-rich interface for managing your applications. There are lots of things we have to learn actually. There is no way that without learning you can know everything. It is not that magic. But once you learn, that becomes a magical tool for you, powerful tool. So deploying application in Kubernetes. So you are a developer or a DevOps engineer, and you are working on the Kubernetes master. There is API server, scheduler, controller manager, and the etcd. The kubelet is interfacing with the master server, the Kubernetes master, and there is the pod, the container, there is your kube proxy. These are called Kubernetes nodes, and you are the user. Okay. So you have done the deployment. What do you do? Your application is inside the container. Your container is inside the pod, and you have been made it possible to deploy a pod with the help of deployment manifest object. With the help of deployment, you can scale up the pods, you can update the pod, and you can roll back the pod. So deployment in Kubernetes is a controller which helps your applications reach the desired state. So you have mentioned in the deployment manifest that you want 3 replicas of a pod. Yes, that's your wish is granted. By whom? By the API server, by the Kubernetes master. Some mechanism. I'm not going to because we have discussed about this thing. Now we come to the next level. See, your deployment is not the last thing. you need to have another a deployment for that service. So what did the deployment do? The deployment created the pod and the replica sets. Okay. But if there were hundreds of pods, how will that communication happen between the pods? You need to attach a service to each and every pod. So service are the identifiers, it is a name given to an application or a pod. Basically, the pod is a not the name. The service will give it a name. Okay, such that the name various persons like the names communicate with each other. So service is a permanent IP address. So whatever service, there are 4 types of services. But the category of the service are, there is external service, there is internal service. These are all done for the security of the pods, because pods are going to be very important constituent, because your applications are running inside the pod. You need to secure them. So I have secured services. These are internal services, and those are called cluster IP. Cluster IP address. In short, it is called cluster IP. Those are internal services. And the external service, because you see, you have to communicate this application with the outer world, because the outer world, the users, either through the pods or through some application, will try to, through the browsers, will try to access the application, isn't it? Otherwise, there is no point. Why did you create an application in the first place? So who is going to get hold of that service, of that pod? It is through the service. Now you have created an external service like a node port. This is a node because this pod is running in a node. So a node will have a port, and the port will externally communicate with the external entities or the external queries. Whether it's safe or not is a different question, but the communication can happen. But you cannot communicate from outside with an internal service like the cluster IP. You can communicate with the node port, or you can communicate with what type of other service can be there. Can you just imagine? Say there is a user or there is an application that needs to connect, or there is a query that needs to connect to this application, some user client. So one is the external service, which is a node port. It has to reach the node port. Then the node port will carry to this service, okay, to the endpoint. But I need to, there is a security measure. So what do you think if I have to, this external service is not secured? If you allow users to communicate with the node port, it is not safe. Because then anyone can go directly, if somebody knows the node port, can directly go and access your application. I want to force it to come through the internal service, through the cluster IP. What will I have in between? What type of another service should I have in place? This is not, I have not discussed as yet, but through your acumen, through your intelligence, can you predict what could be the other service? There is cluster IP, there is node port, external service. What could be the other service through which somebody can communicate, and that will do the distribution to reach the endpoints? What could be that service? Anyone? I think you know the answer, but you are thinking too complex. Think simply. Simplicity is must to have your logic refined. You don't think complex. How will the users, many requests coming and hitting that particular object or that particular service, and that service in turn will do the service to that end user by connecting to that application or the pod or the application basically that the user wants. What could be that service? You have used it. You are using it every day.
Is it IP?
Is it
IP? I'm not so sure I got the question right.
IP? IP or IP is IP address, you mean?
Yeah.
IP address will be assigned to, is a network element. IP address is, see, this is one object. So that object will get an IP address. This is a node. So this node will have a IP address. This service is an object. It will have an IP address, but that is a permanent IP address. That's okay, static IP address. But IP address is not the solution. You will connect to an IP address, but how? Through which service from outside? I don't want to use the node port external service because that is not secured.
That's the ingress right on your board.
It's ingress.
Who said ingress? Huh?
Josie.
Oh, ingress. Did you say ingress?
I saw it on your board.
Yes. So so it's showing ingress.
Yeah, you are fantastic. It is called ingress or load balancer. A load balancer is a service in between the user and the service that you want. Isn't it? Because you hit the load balancer. That's all. Rest of the part will be taken care by the load balancer. And there is coming the concept of ingress controller. That is the finest.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
So can't the IP be classified into ingress and egress?
Yes. Very good question. You see, that load balancer will also have its own IP. See, any objects which are residing over the net or on the network, internet, whatever, they need each of these elements will have an IP address associated. Yeah, you need to have. Ingress is something which is inbound. You are querying, the user is querying a particular application, wants to access an application, okay, from outside. So you have arranged a load balancer in between the user and the application in that node. Okay, the load balancer will take the request from the user and then it will understand that it wants an application or the service of this application. It knows how to route that query and direct it to the endpoint, because there are hundreds of pods or applications. Whichever application that user has requested it will be directed to go to that, reach that endpoint or destination. And that is called with respect to Kubernetes, we have the ingress controller as your load balancer, and the most famous ingress controller is your, can anybody name it? You have often told me that it's a reverse proxy. It's a proxy server. It's a reverse proxy. It is also a load balancer.
Nginx.
Thank you. I am very happy because these are the questions that I generally do it and toward the very end of our Kubernetes course. Okay, but see, in this 2 hour session, not even 2 hours, out of which Mr. Menon has taken already 30 minutes. I'm joking. So in this
Sorry
very
for
short
that.
period of time, in this very short period of time, if you can answer this question, what else can I say? You are brilliant. Nginx is the most famous reverse proxy, load balancer, and an ingress controller with respect to Kubernetes architecture. And one day I ask you to have a study of what is a reverse proxy and what is a forward proxy. So Nginx is a fantastic reverse proxy, as well as it will act as a load balancer, as well as it will be the ingress controller. Now, I will come to that ingress part, but see, everything is a service leading to the endpoint service. An ingress controller is taking your query and putting it and knows how to query that. So there will be a set of rules. The ingress controller, which is a load balancer, will be implemented on the Kubernetes cluster, and it will also have a set of rules. And that set of rules, when we learned AWS, you know there are set of rules, the security group rules, and those are called inbound or ingress rules. And similarly, there are outbound rules called the egress rules. But those are rules. A rule is a set of instructions where it gives you the path, the various path, how it will lead to what, which application. Because on the internet, it is very difficult to reach directly onto any application. The actual IP addresses, those are all hidden under the garb of domains, DNS, load balancers, and all those stuff. So they are hidden. The actual, because otherwise there is a danger. Therefore, I would like to have certain set of path or rules, how that path will lead to my destination endpoint. So the ingress controller, which is Nginx, will read the ingress rules. So ingress resource is one of the very important object or component of Kubernetes. We have to install them. We have to apply them as manifest files. So we will install the ingress controller. These are out of scope of our study over here because these are internship sessions anyway. But we need to install the ingress controller into our Kubernetes. And then we need to have a particular ingress controller, which is Nginx. Why Nginx? Because the beauty of that is within the Nginx, within that ingress controller, which is an Nginx ingress controller, you have the Nginx running inside a pod. Again, everything is a pod because the pod can get exposed to the services. A service can be attached to a pod. A deployment is an abstraction to a pod. I'm repeating this again and again so that these things are becoming your day-to-day discussion. It becomes very known things you discuss within your group. Okay, we have learned Nginx, ingress controller, Nginx. Nginx is also as a pod, will be there inside the pod. So basically, Nginx being a reverse proxy and a load balancer will do the actual work for the ingress controller. So there are there are few more ingress controllers available in the market. One of the competitors of Nginx is Traffic, the Kong, and there are many API servers. API gateways, which are also competing with Nginx, but Nginx has lots of implementation all through because Nginx is one of them which can be directly implemented, and it is one of the fantastic reverse proxy server. Reverse proxy, again, I'm saying, please have a read of what is a reverse proxy, what is the role of a load balancer, what is a role of an ingress controller, whether it could be traffic, or it can be Nginx, or it can be Kong, or it can be any API gateway. And those load balancers, if you are going for a higher priced, what I'm discussing is that you can do it in your own hands. And I will tell you, I have given a very good document um, that will be available to those users or those students who have registered with our internship program. They will find in our site in this session that I have given you the entire installation methods of how you will implement a Kubernetes cluster and how you will go for Nginx ingress controller. And I have given you 2 demos, all the details of the demos. So I'm sure, because I'm not going to be able to give you a demo, hands-on demo today, because there is not enough time, and that is not also, I mean, it will be not a it will be a futile exercise, because you are just learning Kubernetes. Kubernetes is not very simple, I mean to say, but it's not difficult as well. If you learn properly with our help, you can master it. And I will say, because the persons who know Kubernetes well are the persons who scores very highly in an interview. Okay, anyway, that is a different question. But so the services are used to load balance. So load balancer is one service. Cluster IP is one service. External service is one service, node port. So load balance the traffic among the pods. That is the duty of service. That is the beauty and duty of service. Every pod will have have a service attached, and that service will go by uh, the pod which was created by the deployment. So they are all related. It follows the round robin distribution among the healthy pods. So a service, let's say this is a load balancer service, or a ingress controller service, or a Nginx service, or a cluster IP service, or a node port service, whichever, what is the service? Service has a function to deliver your request to the requested pod or the application. And there can be 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 replicas. You do not need to worry about. Let that be decided, and they will find out. It is not necessary that all the pods are running in one node. No, there are 5 nodes. So you can say that if you have a replica, 5 replicas of a pod, then it is not necessary that only node 1 will have all the 5 pods. Maybe node 1 is having 2 pods, node 2 is having no pods, node 3 is having no pods, and the node 4 is having the rest of the pods, and node 5 is not having any pod. So that depends on your service and how it is, how the service is deciding which pod I will schedule it with the help of the scheduler. All these things are, I mean, how to find a pod is the responsibility of a service.
Sorry,
So,
I have a question right there. If you say ingress controller, I mean, in the previous slide.
Shall I go to the previous slide?
Yes, just quickly. If you say connecting external service, I mean,
external service to connect the app
from external source is not secured. How is it not secured?
Yeah, as I told you, if that external service is called node port service. Node port. That means each and every, this is a worker node. Okay. So don't you think that what this is a virtual machine? Do you understand? This is a virtual machine, and any virtual machine will have an IP address. Okay. And that IP address will have one, so that that node is working on a port, and that port will be used as an external service in a Kubernetes cluster that is identified as node port. So it is a port, like you have port number 8080. So a node port will range between, sorry?
I got it. I understand now.
You understand that? Because
Yeah.
you cannot expose any service without a port. You need a port to expose a service. Like your very famous service port for SSH connection. What is that port number?
22?
For SSH 22. Did you say 22?
Yes.
So I am getting all the questions right today. What is happening? My job is I will not get another batch of students because they know everything. Is it not? Anyway, thank you. Very good. 22. So HTTP is a service. Which port does it need to expose the service of HTTP? HTTP will work on port 80. Then there is another service called HTTPS. Okay, which on which port does the HTTPS service get exposed? So that is 443.
Would that be 443?
443, yes, correct. So similarly, a node port is a port assigned for the node through the Kubernetes cluster, and that is called an external service because that service node port ranges between 30,000 to 32665. So it's a lot of numbers because your nodes can also be a huge number of nodes in a cluster. If you are working in a big organization or you are working for a big client, then the Kubernetes architecture can have hundreds of nodes. So you need to have one node port for each of the nodes. So it can be in that cluster. See, the node port cannot, again, see, can you have port number 80? Can you have two HTTP applications working on the same port 80? At the same time on the same server?
No.
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 Similarly, can you have two nodes in a cluster having the same node port?
Shouldn't be.
Shouldn't be. It is not. It must not. So there is a huge range from 30,000 to 32,665. These many nodes can be there in a cluster with a distinct, unique node ports. Did I answer your question? But see,
yes,
if somehow you are through a browser, you know the IP address of this node, don't you? Because yeah, you can log into this node. But also, if you can know the node port, what will happen? You can directly access the service. That means you can go and expose any application. So it is not very safe. Yeah, it is good for testing purpose. Something you want to test quickly, whether it's working, whether you can hit that particular app or the particular pod. Yes, for testing purpose, it is very good. And all the developers, DevOps engineers will use the external service like Noteport. But when it comes to production, do you think it is very safe? No, cannot be. Because if you somehow know the IP address of the node, because you might need to know. And in your URL, browser URL, you might sometimes, if you are not exposing the domain name, you can expose your IP address. Okay, but at the same
So
time,
sorry, is this where we whitelist and blacklist?
sorry, can you repeat that
Is this
question,
where we
please?
do whitelisting?
Exactly, exactly. You do not want all and everyone to get hold of your applications, because then you are asking for trouble. You know the IP address, and at the same time, if you know the node port as well, you can directly hit that node and go and expose any service. It is not very safe. And no application will be ever, they will always hit the load balancer, because you are not allowed to directly hit a pod, an application. So node or ingress controller will control the request. You do not need to know. So if a malicious intention will get stopped over here. That is the beauty of Nginx, which is a load balancer, which is a reverse proxy, as well as which is a web server. So 3 in 1. What else? What else do you need? Now, I will end the discussion today with some amount of discussion on ingress. Are you interested, or you already got bored? Let me know, because I was not being able to understand. I'm not being able to see you.
Carry on, sir.
Can I carry on?
Yes.
Oh, very good. Thank you. I am very happy, because I like to carry on with the discussions like this. So when you see you have a Kubernetes cluster, where is ingress? Ingress refers to act of entering, ingress, inbound, and egress is outbound. You are leaving the cluster. Fine. And then what is an ingress? Okay, before I go to that ingress, let me tell you that where do I start? Okay, let me do this diagram. So you are the user, or somebody else is the user. The user request will hit the node port or the load balancer of. Is this the node port of this node port is not the same as the node on which these pods are running? No. This is some node port, because see, somewhere you have to expose the service. So that ingress service is either exposed through a node port service or a load balancer service. But this node port has nothing to do with the node port of a node. Please remember this. I have to expose my service to the external world. So node port is a very good external service provider. Okay. So I am not yet in the cluster. Remember, I am outside the cluster. So somebody wants to access my cluster. I am there as a proxy. You have to first go through me. You should be authenticated. Okay, so I expose a node port. Let me see how is the user. Either through the load balancer, it is called a load balancer, or a node port. Fine. If this person, this user is authenticated, if the request is valid, this ingress knows that I have certain set of rules and I know the path that this requester is requesting for. So this is a valid request. I will allow that request to hit my ingress controller. Now comes the ingress controller. Where is the ingress controller? Ingress controller is implemented on the Kubernetes cluster. Right? Sure. Because we have installed the ingress, maybe it is Nginx ingress controller. I'm not mentioning any name, but assume that it is a Nginx ingress controller, and this is an Nginx ingress service. So this is a set of rules through which the ingress controller will reach the destination. So in the Kubernetes cluster, after the user has been authenticated, that user request has been authenticated through a node port or a load balancer, it hits the ingress controller. That means now it hits the Kubernetes cluster. And the ingress controller is an object, a set of so many things, set of objects, lots of objects, which is a lot of controllers, which will talk to the ingress rule. Ingress rule is nothing but a set of rules that it has been designed by you or by somebody else who knows what are the services, what are the applications that are running inside this. So all of these applications, let's say I have a demo in this application, in this cluster, there are two applications running, two sets of application running. One is the video demo, this is a demo.com. This is the domain. We have reached this domain. And there is one type of service called video services, and there is the image service. And let's say this is your Netflix, and this is the Google Photos, Google Photos, Google Photos, images. They are two different services. So there are 3 pods for Netflix for a particular, say, some application, Netflix application running there. And this is a Google application running there with all the Google Photos. Okay, they are the same application running in 3 replicas, same application of Netflix running in 3 replicas. So my user has requested for some Netflix service, say video service. How will the user reach this destination or this pod is the rules. And these rules can only be read by ingress controller, nobody else, not even this service. This is an internal service. Can you see? It is cluster IP. This is internal service. So cluster IP is a master. It knows how to reach there. This ingress controller is not a cluster IP service. Ingress controller is one object which is implemented on the cluster, which is sort of a gateway. It's a gateway. If it does not allow, nobody can enter this Kubernetes cluster. So Kubernetes, again, this ingress controller cannot work without the rules. So if the rule is perfect, then my request for Netflix videos will be reached into this destination. Otherwise, if I have requested for some Google images or photos, I will reach this. I am basically asking for this service, this cluster IP service. This cluster IP service will talk to the deployments of these pods. Because each of this deployment of these are replicas, so they know the deployment and hence they know the service, because the service is exposed for each of the pods. Because each of the pod will have an IP address, but instead of using a differential IP address, it will use a constant, a single IP address. So this service will have one cluster IP. Cluster IP is IP address. Somebody was saying that you need an IP. Yes, you need. This is the service. Service will be also an IP address. So you hit this destination, and it is sort of a service. You hit this, and therefore So this image, when you say demo.com/image, will reach you this service, and then the rest of the things will be done by this service. So an ingress is an object that allows access to your Kubernetes service from outside the Kubernetes cluster. You can configure access by creating a collection of rules that define which inbound connections reach which service. You can go through. All these things are available in our site. We have we have we have done a lot of work to make your life easy. So please use them. It is all for you. So they are how ingress works. Like ingress works as an YML. YML is nothing but the format or the language that you use to create those manifest files, right? Manifest files are nothing but the declarative scripts, what you want, what you desire. So you desire some rules. So you hit the backend rules. This YAML has the file has the backend rules. Each backend rule defines a service. So yeah, so everything is related. So each rule will say which service I want. So basically it will divert to that path, and that path will lead to a service, and that service will lead to the pod. They are all related. So if I want, most popular ingress controller is Nginx. I have also mentioned over here, which can effectively route the traffic by the traffic or the backend rules defined in the YAML. Somebody has to be there to interpret these rules, and nobody else but the ingress controller can do that job. We have to implement this in ingress controller.
Sorry, I have a question, please. I kind of
Yes,
got
please.
lost for a second. So the ingress controller, is it going to have like the backend? Is it going to have its own inputs file where this script will be imputed?
So if I understood your question, would you like to repeat it again?
Yes. So I was saying that will it have? Sorry, I'm on the road and I'm listening in.
No
said,
problem. No problem. Please continue.
Yes, so I was saying that the ingress controller at the back end will it have its own like inputs file where this script will be, where you put the scripts.
Your question is leading to a very, I didn't want to discuss that, but I'm forced to discuss it now. You have rightly pointed out, you were having a question. Okay, how does it, who is reading this ingress rule? So if I suppose that this ingress controller is from Nginx, then can I say this ingress controller is like an object implemented within the Kubernetes cluster having a pod which is running Nginx? That is the crux of the solution. That the solution is delivered by Nginx, which is hidden inside a pod. Nobody knows that. Apparently, nobody knows that there is the Nginx server, Nginx, that web server or the load balancer or the thing. So that is, you can say this is the hardware and the Nginx is the software. So you have reached the hardware, but who will try to read the ingress rules? The Nginx server, the web server, the proxy server, or the reverse proxy server, or the load balancer. So that power is with Nginx if it is an Nginx ingress controller. So your question was so beautiful that I had to now disclose that hidden truth. That is, the Nginx is running inside a pod. That pod, now again, the question comes, how will this service get an access to this Nginx service? See, Nginx is also running on a port. Can anybody tell me which port? What 80. Is the service? Sorry?
Port 80. Port 80.
Port 80. Oh, I'm getting every answer correct today. I don't know whether I have to be happy or I'm sad because nobody is going to learn from me. Anyway, joking again. So Nginx is a web server, HTTP server, proxy server. It is working on port 80, but that is internal. On this hardware piece, it is the pod is having a internal port of 80, which is running Nginx. But how? Because you cannot access port 80 from outside. So how will Nginx expose its service to this service or to this service? So Nginx will expose an external service. What is that external service? What is the name of that external service? See, port 80 is the internal service, like the cluster IP. Internal service.
443.
No, 443 is a different service. See, I'm talking of Nginx.
Okay.
Nginx is on HTTP, but you are talking of HTTPS. Okay. So that will be 443. It's a different port. My port is 80, but my port 80 cannot be accessed from outside.
422.
So I need to, that Nginx need to expose another port, an external port called node port. Okay, it will expose a node port because see, it is inside the cluster. So it is safe. The user does not know anything about what is happening inside. It is protected. So it can easily expose its node port to the cluster IP service, isn't it? They can talk to each other. So this service has a target port, or rather this service has a target port of the cluster IP. So the node port, which is an external service, will be exposing the Nginx service to this service. And before so Nginx, what it did, it has understood the rules. It has read the rules. So it will call the service. Say, suppose somebody is wanting the video service. So it will call, Nginx will call directly, expose the node port for this service. So cluster IP knows now, this service knows this service is for all these pods. It will know that somebody is requesting with having some request. So it will allow, because it does not feel any danger, because this is coming from internal, because it is cluster IP. So that way things get exposed. Very secure. So similarly, so I have given a REST API sort of API call. That is, I'm giving a path, a URL. That means I want the video service or the image service. Accordingly, that it will go, this service will take you to the video service, this service will take you to the image service. It can be some other service and its port. See, everything will be port wise. And this service knows these ports because it knows the IP address. It knows each and every, because it is aligned to that deployment. This deployment and the service they are hand in glove to each other. Ingress is a cost effective. Now you can say why we have to learn all these things, because my dear friend, you have to save the cost of your company. That's why you are hired. So somebody who does not know all these things will easily suggest that, okay, I will use the AWS or the Azure or the Google load balancer. There is, but that is costly. So that's why if you want to save your money for your, but you do not undermine, even if it is less costly, because you are implementing it, but this is very powerful if you know how to do it. I do not need a costly load balancer provided by the cloud provider like AWS or, or this thing. Yeah, they are very good, but they come with a price. And many companies today, they don't want that to pay that price. When the knowledge is available in the market through you, why to spend the money outside to give it to AWS or Microsoft or to Google? No, I will better pay you rather than paying Microsoft.
Okay. Devashi, so would this be our job to configure the Nginx load balancer?
Yes, and you will be very confident to do that because that is why you have got the job. There were hundreds of candidates for the job, but you got it because you knew how to implement and work with a Nginx ingress controller or traffic ingress controller or Kong ingress controller or any other API gateway because you know the technology. That's why you have scored high. That's why the interviewer was very happy with the way you have answered their questions. So all these things, items, all these materials are available in our site. You please go and get a hold of it. And I have given you I will show you what I have given you. Let me discuss. So this is a diagrammatic representation of the ingress. So somebody is the user, because the user knows that I cannot do anything other, other than getting through the domain. And this domain does not say anything, neither the IP address, nor the port, nor the destination, nothing. Just some application.example.domain. So the user gives this particular request on the URL. This will come to hit the load balancer. Now, this can be a cloud load balancer if you are rich. If your company is rich, they will go for cloud load balancer, or they may want to go through your ingress controller, this thing. They will directly go and use your ingress controller. It can be Nginx, it can be traffic, it can be Kong. But it is an ingress controller. The rules and everything will remain the same. The technology remains the same. It is it is implemented in an Nginx ingress Nginx namespace. That is by default. When you install the ingress control, you have to install it, and that will create a namespace.
See,
Anyway,
here one thing I would like to tell. Here our main agenda. I think someone asked in the very beginning of our session, what is this today's meeting agenda? Here our agenda is to create an awareness that these tools you should learn to,
yes,
which can help you to job search, and if you are learning what you are going to face. Now there are some certain students who without knowing that what they are going to face if they choose certain domain. So our these total sessions, like last 9 week sessions, agenda was to make for this particular DevOps one, like if any students or freshers or if somebody wants to change their domain and they want to choose DevOps, what will be their day-to-day activities and which tools they should know for applying a job and they should know which can help them to secure a job more easily. Now in our main training where we actually prepare the students for the job interview, we call that kind of training like a job ready training, where we do have much more time, like for only the Kubernetes only we are going to cover more or less 12 days or 2 weeks. So over there we are going to not only have a scope to teach every single point, but also we'll work on a live project where you need to work and make your hand dirty with
demo.
in the
yes, projects basically.
Cast-on project. So here you should with this thing, I think BTM is one of the students who has very proactive from day one for this session, and he can if he has time, he can tell that what if you join from day one, what will be the outcome after completions of this 9 days session. You should have a holistic overview what is going on the DevOps. But are you ready for the job market? No, because no one can no one can inject the whole thing in 1 hour or in like this 10
It's not
hours
possible.
session.
Not possible. I will
So
be doing injustice to that subject
hey,
if I
yes.
even complete it. I cannot. I cannot claim to complete it.
Now just have an idea that students from accounting background, commerce background, healthcare background, they got the job in DevOps after completions of our training. So our training is that much powerful. But for that, we have to work 75 hours in live training and more than another 60 hours to working with the labs. So not only our trainer should be on their toes, all the students they should have a very good devotion towards that. So what will be the plan, Mr. Devashish? Today, are we going to? I think we are very late, but
Yes.
this Kubernetes, some of the workload or work map, your demo is remain. Should we then from the next weekend? Should we start the new batches uh, or what will be the plan?
Mr. Menon, I need 1 week's rest.
No, like next week, this one is we are moving forward to completions of this one, or we are going to move to end of this one.
You can tell me.
Or if you what we can do, we can share the one video. I think 30 minutes left of our session. QA session we can do, but we can share the video. Will that help? Okay, we'll discuss.
We'll
And
discuss.
yeah, and we'll because our initial plan was to complete the whole DevOps with 8 weeks, but or 8 session. But today's already is 9th session. We have already extended 1 session. Now, few students they are a little eager to join from the very day one, and so we are in a little bit in in between tough situation. So we'll discuss and we'll figure out how to will be the best outcome. So one more thing, few students they want to join our main training. Unfortunately, they cannot do the registration because the date was the previous date was there. So now the new date was 10th. New batch is going to start in 10th May. We have a coupon code. Those students have joined today, and they want to register themselves for the main course. Ping us so I can share the in the group so I can share the coupon code by which you can save $30. I think $30, yes, during registration. But the only catch is that the code is valid only for today. So tomorrow that code will not be valid. So if anyone is interested, just ping us and I will forward that coupon code in your private message.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Menon.
So forgive me, I just came out of this. I came back to this screen because I thought it is. I mean, whatever we have learned in Kubernetes, that is a very good starting point, and that is our objective. That to give you uh, to know where you stand and how much you can go, how deep you can go, all these things. But that idea should be there, and I think we have successfully implanted that idea over this 9 weeks.
Okay. Because Kubernetes itself, even if you can check in our website, we do have a separate course in Kubernetes for 6 weeks. That is with Helm chart and other stuff. That is in-depth training. If someone really want to be, become master in Kubernetes, which we cannot.
But that is not very preferable. We need to know DevOps other tools along with Kubernetes. That is much more useful than
Yes,
just to know only
that
Kubernetes.
that course is good if someone is
Already knowing, yeah, yeah.
already working as a DevOps engineer and their company is right now trying to implement has Kubernetes and they have to become a master within couple of weeks. That course is like a one-stop solution for Kubernetes. But if somebody is very new, I will not going to recommend for them because they need to first learn about the the basic steps like Linux, clouds, and then some deployment tools, Docker, then move to the Kubernetes. But our main course, another course where Kubernetes is a part of a small module, where we are going to devote like a 10 to 2 weeks session, where you can be a master, but again, you can understand the main difference is right now all DevOps position they demand some of the Kubernetes skill and there is certain position that is fully focused on Kubernetes. So 85% of the DevOps roles you need little bit of Kubernetes skill. So to keep it in mind, we design our training in such a way, and that is the latest edition. We have also incorporated Kubernetes most important parts, like that is like a 2 week session in our main courses. And we do have a separate Kubernetes mastery session that is 6 weeks if your project is wholly based on Kubernetes, and that is very rare. Share the link to the course. Yeah, I am sharing. Should I share? Darshan, are you in?
I have one question, Mr. Menon. Do
Yeah,
you have
please.
a class solely for Terraform?
Terraform. I think in our main course we have 1 week session in the Terraform, and what I believe that is a very good enough, by which people can survive and clear the job very easily.
Because you do a bit more of Terraform in the Capstone project. So apart from those 5 sessions of Terraform, you will also do Terraform in quite detailed way in your Capstone project.
Now let me tell that Nagozi is one of our students, and she successfully land various is Fortune 500 company as a DevOps engineer. She completed our training I think 1 years before or 1 or 2 years before, and she is one of our very proud student. Uh, and
Oh.
That is the one thing. But again,
Since
please.
Since 2021.
Okay, that's great. Now, please understand, she is working right now as a DevOps engineer and having experience more than 4 or 5 years in that field. She have completed our DevOps training, but still she is joining our session because this session is important as your job field and project, and especially in DevOps, is evolving every day. So people, those are choose IT professions, they should be always update themselves as per market and job, especially job market aspects, right? Thank you, Nagozi. Darshan, I have a small question. Should I send the link here or are you in the WhatsApp group?
Okay, Mr. Menon, I would, whoever is remaining, I would like to show them what should be what they are going to expect in our side out of this session. Okay,
Sure.
because I
Sure.
wanted to show them that just 1 minute.
Sure.
I will share the screen. Okay. In our site, you will get the full documentation of Kubernetes installation of the cluster. Okay, QAdmin. I have given the details, and this you can keep it with you for long. This is how you install. So each and every step that I have given, if you can do it, because many people fail in the correct installation path. Okay, so these are the various steps. You go through it and you will really benefit out of it. There is a virtual box. If you want to do it over your Windows machine or a Mac machine, you can do it through the virtual box. Or if you want to do it over cloud OS instances like EC2 instances of AWS or Azure instances, that is up to you. That is also, you follow the same document. Okay.
Oh, you have documented all the steps. Wow.
All the steps, each and every, because you cannot go wrong, because main people, they do not document what they do when they are successful, so they get lost somewhere. And because installation of a Kubernetes cluster is the first and the foremost part, which the hurdle, because many people after getting a job, they are not being able to cross this hurdle. So you get entire documentation of what is a C group and how do you overcome a system D versus C group, all these things. It's complicated because it is fully network based. You have to know, and I have given each and every details what is needed. So you can, it's a fantastic document. It is, everything is available there. After this installation, then I have also given you how do you deploy the Kubernetes cluster. How can you implement that on an Amazon EKS, Elastic Kubernetes Service? This is also because many people or many organizations are using the cloud Kubernetes architecture to deploy the Kubernetes cluster. So you have to deploy a Kubernetes cluster, but maybe on a cloud. They are giving you managed services and you have to harness that power. But this is a costly solution. The solution that I have discussed is entirely cost saving. And it is flexible. You can have any system, anything, but here you are bound to Amazon. But this is a very good installation steps.
So these things is available inside our courses, right? Like the DevOps Internship Program 2, inside these documents is there. Okay,
yes,
fantastic.
Yes. And then
Okay.
there I have also given you 2 demos. A demo on which I suppose which I thought I would be able to, but that's okay. You can do it yourself because this document will be available with you. A demo
if you have
on
any
ingress
doubts,
controller.
I think if you have any doubts, I think you can post in the WhatsApp group as well.
Yes. And another demo is how to use ingress and ingress controller to access applications running on a Kubernetes cluster. So I have given 2 demo applications which will really benefit you if you can go through it. Go through it and practice it. So don't think that it is not possible. It's possible. Just be very, very meticulous in all your steps. You do whatever you do, you document it. So this is all that I wanted to show.
Okay,
this is available.
So I had a question from last week about how do you implement microservices within an application in a pod?
Yeah. That is what, this is also a microservice. The demo applications that I have given, especially the last one. It is possible, very much possible. That is why you use Kubernetes, because you want to deploy your microservices over the Kubernetes cluster.
So the microservices are inside a pod, within a pod too, or how?
Yeah, one microservice, one pod. That is the thumb rule. So you have one container, one pod. It is because you want to give the microservice a coating of security and all the stuff. So you isolate it. Microservices are isolated, loosely coupled applications. So, but it is preferable that one microservice inside one, but your pods will talk to each other over the pod network. When you install your Kubernetes cluster, you will install the pod network as well. Just now it is the question of deploying your microservices. Though microservice has been given to you by your developer, you just containerize it and deploy it. That's all. But you need to know how to do it. That's why I've given you two good examples. You will know how to use the ingress controller to uh, reach the destination. Because the main problem, even if you deploy it, your user who is outside the Kubernetes cluster, they are not being able to access your application. If the users cannot access your application, then what's the use of doing so many things, and finally your applications are not being able to be used from outside world. Not only outside world, you have to ensure that only authenticated users and valid users are being able to access. No hacking, no nothing. So you have to protect your applications as well. You have to make your applications available 24/7. You have to ensure that the they are reliable. They have the data integrity. It is not dirty reads and dirty writes. So that's why you implement microservices, and that's why you implement the cluster, Kubernetes cluster. Okay. So I will stop the sharing.
Okay,
Did I
let
answer
me
your question?
Yes.
Don't worry,
okay.
because maybe there are lots of questions hovering into your mind, but those will, as you study more and more and learn more and more, things will get absolutely clear.
And guys, when you are trying to implement or test or do the demo on your spare time, if you face any obstacle or queries or question, feel free to ask in our group. Tag any of our trainer or me or any of our uh, experts. They will definitely come back to you with some answers. Okay. So that's the one of the biggest reason we have created the WhatsApp group, because this class interval is 1 week. So if you wait for next week, sometimes you will forget the question. So better you can communicate in the group. Now, Darshan, let me share. I have shared this link with you. Let me show you the course. This is the course. We do have two courses, and one is morning batch, one is evening batch. This is our main training course. This is the lecture is 75 hours, and we have so far done 3030 3331. Oh, good number. And this is the whole course content. You can the brief description is here, and the course things is inside this here. Okay, now you can see understand the Kubernetes part is very long here, because we have newly added those, I think the last 1 or 2 session before, because Kubernetes become unavoidable part in today's job market. So we have added those part. The next session, next batch, evening batch. This is the PM CST, that means evening batch, is going to start in 9th May. 5 days remain. This is a limited to student batch, so because most of the training 80% of hands-on, so we cannot make it like a fish market. Otherwise, we cannot, uh, very you cannot attend all of the questions. So here main agenda is making sure all students are ready after completion of the course. It is not like we are providing the information and now it is up to the students how much they can catch. It should not be like that. We have to make it sure that they should not, any unanswered question should not be remain on the table. Now, from your end, you also should be very much proactive. You not only need to join the day-to-day classes, you also need to, devote another 2 to 3 hours to implement those stuff or information on your dedicated lab. Every student will have a dedicated lab on their AWS account, and that lab will remain with you after the course, because after the course completions you will have all the classes recording, you will have the WhatsApp group, and you have the lab. So after the course completion, when you start working with your capstone project, you need indirective guidance from our trainer. So in that scenario, you have the recording, or you can find the reference. You have the lab where you can implement the capstone project, and you have the WhatsApp group where you can, if you face some issues, you can get back to your trainer. So this is the model we normally follow, and this model was very successful for last couple of years, and thankful.
And let me tell you, just one second. Let me tell you one thing. Even today, after having so many batches of training and all the stuff, even today I consult my gurus, my my teachers' video recording. Because if I get stuck somewhere, I consult that recording and try to find out, listen to it carefully to understand where I'm doing that mistake. So it's a continuous process. It is a ongoing process. It never ends.
Exactly. So this is our main courses, and the courses you have already done. That is our free courses, which is we have cybersecurity and DevOps. I think from the next weekend we are going to start a very new internship program, but that is a different domain. That is AI and data engineering one. That is actually brief description of this course. We do have a main course registration. So this is the main course. This is like a 6 weeks classes with machine learning and other stuff. But we are going to start a 4-week weekend session, same internship program for this one, mainly for AI. Those want to know, they can join. Those want to switch or pursue their career on this AI field, they can also opt it out. But again, learning curve in this particular course is little bit stiffer than other DevOps or cybersecurity one. This is a thing. Now, second thing is we do have a today's cybersecurity session in CST evening or Indian morning. DevOps and cybersecurity is right now in a unionship. So if you are still planning to go and grab a job in DevOps, but still you should join those cybersecurity session that will give you a high level overview how to secure your environment. And if you are planning to fully committed with security, then this course become unavoidable or very essential for your career. Third thing, those students have already joined all of our session and willing to get the certification. Please ping me in personally. I will provide the certificate, these last 8-9 sessions internship certificates, e-certificate. So that will help you in your journey. Because there is a prerequisites for this getting this certificate, you need to have at least joined 60% of the session and completed of your coursework. So ping me or ping in the WhatsApp group, or better ping me personally. Then we'll discuss and we'll share the certificate with you. So that is the medium.
Is it possible to be in both classes, or are they going to be running, parallel, cyber and DevOps?
We both have which course are you talking about? Internship or the main course?
I'm talking about the main course now. If you want to be in DevOps and at the same time you want to still go into the cyber main session, are they going to be running on the same time?
Same time.
Okay, so it's better to just be in one first, complete that, and then.
Yes. Now, we do have batches in morning and evening. You can opt complete registration. For one is evening, one is morning.
Some of us, we're working, so
then
it's gonna be tough.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I always recommend don't register 2 training at the same time. I mean, the reason is it is not only joining the session, listening or watching the video or listening the lecture is not. It is only half road you have completed. Because
Okay.
apart from the training, you also need another 2 to 3 hours to work on the lab.
Yeah, hands-on. That's right.
Yes, because this is a fully hands-on training. Now,
That's the most important.
I don't know how I'm going to tell, Bidemi, because we had a long discussion from last couple of sessions.
Yeah.
In interview, you cannot clear with your theoretical knowledge. Even like last 1 or 2 years before, company have started coding round. Okay, but still they find out, okay, coding is good, but they normally in the coding round they ask simple syntax, but it will not actually giving the essence that this person is actually fit for that particular job role or not. Now they become so like challenging that they actually going to ask about the real problem what they are facing in their project, and you will not have that reference from anywhere in the internet. Only way you can clear if you have a really idea about same kind of hands-on experience.
Mm.
So watching the video and watching the classes live session is only like 30%. 60% what the lab we are going to provide, and you need to implement the same thing.
I
I'm
think
giving an example. In
yeah.
our classes, we are going to teach you A, B, C, D. In our lab, we're going to demand to write some words. So we have already given you information what is ABCD. Now you need to put some imaginations with ABCD and create some words. Definitely you will fail. You will fail. What we found in our long experience, if students fail at 70%, they lose the interest. If they fully success, they don't use their imaginations. If they somehow fail in between 90 to 95%, they have a high level of interest and they are using multiple imaginations with those information. That will give a exact benefit what we are looking at.
That's
So
right.
the next day, you are going to ask the trainer that, hey, I failed. What is the thing? From there, the trainer will start their next day session.
I think what the most problem in most interviews is the technical questions. That's when they want to know.
Scenario based question.
Yeah, if we ask you technical questions, like the intricacies of what you want to bring in. How do you do this? How do you go from A to B to C to D? They want to know that, and if from your explanation is going to let them know whether you actually have the experience or not. Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's what kills most interview process. Easy. You can do phone interview, do all of those things, but when they come to the technical questions, then they bring in somebody who knows the job. And then they will now asking you like, what we've been teaching about Kubernetes nodes and stuff like that, going from point A to point B. When you are able to give them those facts, then they know that you know what you're talking about, and I think that is where a lot of people fails.
Yes. Exactly. Okay, then. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Devashish, for your wonderful session. We are going.
Is it a one-time payment, sir? Is it a one-time payment?
If you want to use the coupon code, then it's one-time payment. If you don't want to the coupon code, then you can split it in 2 installment.
Oh, okay. Oh, good to hear that. So one starts on the 9, which is cyber, and the other one starts on the 10.
No, just opposite. 9th is the DevOps. Cyber is 10th.
Okay, let's say for instance now, let's say I was on the morning class, session, and then my schedule changes. Then I have to go into the evening.
That will not
possible?
going to. Yeah, that is. See, we very frankly, and with me, some other our previous students is here. so I cannot tell lies so they will catch me. So for in Kalki, we are not that much professional that you have joined for this group, you have to stick with that. So many times students join because of their family emergency, they dropped and then they rejoin some other batches without paying any money. So many times they join in a morning batch, but their office schedules changes.
Exactly. Yes.
They
That's
joined
my
in,
point now.
yes, they join the next evening batch. So you have already enrolled for our classes. Now our job is making sure you are get the information and the uh, uh,
Complete the
that
course.
yes.
Yeah.
Now I'm just giving an example. One very our beloved students, she joined in DSA 14 batch. Now right now we are doing DSA 39 batch. So maybe 2 years before, Be- and she dropped the classes because she was uh, having baby in little critical stage. Now after 1.5 years, she wants to rejoin the classes, same classes, but evening batches. We gladly asked, okay, please join, and because she already paid for one classes. It is not like US doctor and there is no show fee, not like that. We are still based in India and we value mm, the our obligations part as well.
Hmm.
Quick question.
Yeah,
No,
please.
Yeah, so the question actually relates to what you just said just now. So it might sound repetitive, but I just want to get something clear.
Mm,
So can people who already joined a previous DevOps class, maybe 3 years back or 4 years
mhm,
back, who completed the course successfully,
mhm.
and they feel like refreshing their memory, and can they join the new the new batch of
No,
DevOps class?
if you have already completed the full classes,
Mm-hmm.
then if you want to join the redo the classes, then
Mm-hmm.
you will need to do the registration, because these classes is limited seat. Now there is a thing. Suppose you have done the whole courses, you have landed in a job. Now you need a little bit refreshment for or brush up session for your Ansible part on a single module. At that moment of time, you don't need to worry. You just ask us, we'll give you access for that maybe for 1 week. But if you want to redo the whole courses, then you need to resubscribe. But again, that the price is not same as a fresher. The price will be different because you are redoing the classes. The reason behind these classes is hands-on, and we do have a threshold limit of new students or total students. Now, if I am somebody, now if you could not complete at the first session, or you have dropped, like suppose you dropped after 20 days, now you can resume the classes. Even you can could not you could not complete at least 50%, then you can start from the very beginning and complete the course without paying. But if you are already completed, then if you want to refresh the whole course, you need to resubscribe with discounted price, because because so many students have done that thing with us. But
Okay.
one or two module, if you want to refresh brush up needed, you don't need to pay.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, because I see each batch has different spice. Like what I'm saying is this, like, the more batches, the more components of courses or elements of technologies that are being included in each batch, right? So like example is this, right? Maybe the last 3 or 4 batches, maybe Kubernetes was not really much covered in that batch, which I attended. And in this batch, there is more Kubernetes stuff that has been included, more hands-on, and I feel I want to gain more.
Now if you have done the batches with us, I think first 24 batches Jenkins was there, right? Then
Mm-hmm.
we introduced GitLab. So we
Exactly.
have
Yeah.
changed. We have changed the course content. So what we have done, because of our way of thinking, we create a free session for a 1 week and ask all of our previous students to join this class freely
Okay.
and update themselves for GitLab, because that is our thought, because those students already done their due part. Maybe they have done the classes 2 years before, but this is our obligation, that because the market got changed, we need to have updated our training, so they should also learn. So we have
Mm.
created a separate master class, not only for 1 day, for 1 week, and that was a complete free classes we have done. We have a very good number of students who have joined, and they so that makes us different with other institute, because here our agenda is simple. Those students are really get educated on that particular field. We will make it sure we are delivering as per their vision or their dream. Now, tomorrow, if job market is changed, we are going to introduce some new thing, or we are changing some new, or introducing some new course content. We definitely create some new master classes, and we'll ask all of our previous students to join freely and update those things. It is like a software update, when you buy some software with a lifetime uh, license. Now, if there is a changes or update is there, it will ask their previous users to update the thing. That time they don't ask for repayment.
Hello, Kelly.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So this is outside this discussion. Please, is it possible that I couldn't join the classes when you talked about Tableau, Power BI, and all that? Is it possible that I arrange a special class with it? But my job now requires it seriously. It's points.
You are talking about data analytics, right?
Huh?
Are you talking about data analytics?
Yes.
Do you have done the training for our data analytics training?
Yeah, but I couldn't join. But right now, I need those skills seriously, especially Tableau, Power BI.
I think you can ping me and let me check if there is any ongoing training is going on. I definitely ask you to hop in, because I am assuming there is a one training. I don't know. They have already covered the Tableau or the Tableau part. They have already covered or not. If they are is going to cover, or already they are on that particular topic, I will ask your Microsoft Teams channel link, and I will send you invitation for that course. But if it is already over, then you need to wait until the next batch is going to start. You don't need to worry, but we are going to update you if it is a very urgent requirement for you.
Okay, sorry, I don't have your number again. I don't need your number on the platform. But I'm
You can
just listening.
whatever batch you have. There's a separate WhatsApp group for every individual batch, right? So just ping hi or just ask the question. I'll be there. I'll reach out to you.
Okay, thank you.
Most welcome. Bye. Yes, Tamziza.
So because the Kubernetes is newly added, so will there be any free session to learn Kubernetes?
Actually, we are planning to set up a master classes for this uh, uh, Kubernetes one, because with the next evening batch. Because right now next evening batch is morning batch is going on, and I don't know their progress, but we are actually on the discussion that when we can schedule a separate master class for our Kubernetes one.
Okay, Candy, are we going to get a recording for this class? It's Kubernetes or those things?
Kubernetes?
Yeah,
Today's class?
this particular, yeah. Can we get the recording?
Yeah. Yes. Are you in the WhatsApp group?
Yeah, I'm in the WhatsApp group.
See, we do have a number of WhatsApp group. For every batch, there is a WhatsApp group because to communicate with the individual student. But are you in the internship group?
No, no, sir.
Okay. You just ping over there. I will send the internship group or the group where I will normally the videos are stored or published inside our course content. So it is free. You just you have the registration. You just click register, and you will have the access. And in the first course module, you will have all previous days and today's video recording.
Okay.
Okay, then today the session was 1 hour extra, but that was a very good discussion we have done. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.